We've counted down our top 10 greatest players of all time and broken the list down by position, but now it's time to break it down by decade. We've already ranked our top 10 players of the 2000s. Here are our top 10 greatest players of the 90s. Number 10, Scottie Pippen. Yes, we haven't always been the most ardent supporters of Scottie Pippen, but considering what he did for the Bulls in the 90s, it's hard to argue with his place on this list. In his time with the Bulls, he averaged nearly 18 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block per game, not to mention his contributions to 6 NBA titles. He was a versatile player, making the All-Defensive First Team 8 times throughout the 90s and the All-NBA First Team 3 times. Number 9, Reggie Miller. Put simply, Reggie Miller was a scoring machine. He never averaged many assists or rebounds, but he could score from pretty much anywhere and drop threes like it was nothing. He spent pretty much his entire career in the top 10 in three-pointers made per season and was top 10 in points scored 3 times during the 90s. His battles with the Knicks are the stuff of legend. There were very few players who could electrify a crowd the way Reggie Miller could. Number 8, Patrick Ewing. So begins the onslaught of all-time greats that probably would have won a ring if they didn't play in the same era as Michael Jordan. Ewing had his low moments, but he was still a face of the NBA throughout the decade. His dominance really started in the late 80s, and by the end of the 90s, he was pretty much on his last leg, but that didn't stop him from making the All-Star team 8 times throughout the decade. He was top 10 in points, rebounds, and blocks for pretty much every season from 1990 to 2000. Number 7, Charles Barkley. As a 6'6" power forward, Charles Barkley should not have been able to be as successful as he was. However, not only was Barkley a successful player, he's one of the greatest of all time. For his career, he averaged 22 points, nearly 12 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. He was top 10 in rebounds 4 times during the 90s and top 10 in win shares 3 times. Keep in mind that this was all done by a guy who was at least 4 inches shorter than most of his counterparts. Barkley's unique game made him almost unguardable, and he topped it all off by winning the MVP award in 1993. Number 6, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq also showed up in our top 10 players of the 2000s list. Although the 90s were the start of Shaq's dominance and he didn't reach his peak until the 2000s, he still left his mark on the decade. After drafting Shaq, the Magic went from a 21-win team to a team contending for a championship. During his time with the Magic, Shaq averaged over 27 points and 12 rebounds. He then joined the Lakers in 1996 and went on to win 4 rings and an MVP. Number 5, John Stockton. Stockton is one of the greatest point guards of all time and one of the greatest players of all time. He holds the record for the most assists and steals, and to be honest, probably no player will ever break those records. He made the All-Star game pretty much every year of the 90s, made the All-NBA team 8 times, and the All-Defensive team 4 times, an aspect of his game that is not widely talked about. Stockton was the perfect point guard, not to mention a 2-time Hall of Fame inductee. Number 4, David Robinson. Compared to most great players, David Robinson had a relatively short career, spanning less than 15 seasons. However, he made those years count. He is a 10-time All-Star, an MVP, and a 2-time champion. He also won Rookie of the Year after helping the Spurs set the record for the best single-season turnaround in NBA history, improving the team record by 35 wins. He won Defensive Player of the Year in 1992, just about completing the circuit of major awards and leaving a strong legacy behind. Number 3, Karl Malone. If not for a couple of stinking free throws and a turnover, Karl Malone might be a 2-time NBA champion right now. As great as Jordan and Pippen were, Stockton and Malone were very close to beating them, a testament to their greatness as players and teammates. Karl Malone himself was a 2-time MVP and was second on this list only to Jordan in average win shares per season throughout the 90s. Number 2, Hakeem Olajuwon. We made an entire video devoted to discussing how immensely underrated, or at least underappreciated, Hakeem Olajuwon is. He is known by some as an all-time great, and yet he's rarely mentioned in those conversations. Hakeem is 1st in total blocks, 11th in total points, and 3rd in blocks per game. Throughout the 90s, he made the All-NBA team 7 times, the All-Defensive team 5 times, and the All-Star team 7 times. He won 2 rings, 2 Finals MVP awards, 1 regular season MVP award, and 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Number 1. Michael Jordan. What is there even left to say about Michael Jordan? He's on pretty much every greatest of all time list, no matter what the topic is, because, well, he was just that great. He averaged an insane 16 win shares per season through the 90s, more than anyone else on this list, and was undoubtedly the face of the NBA throughout the decade. And for good reason. He won 6 NBA titles, 6 Finals MVP awards, and 5 regular season MVP awards, in addition to other stuff like Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, and All-Star MVP, which would be career highlights for other players. Jordan is basketball royalty. People don't ask if LeBron is better than Magic or Kareem or Kobe. They ask if he's better than Jordan. He's the greatest player of all time and will be for the foreseeable future. So what do you think of our list? Did we leave someone out? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you follow us on social media to get updates as soon as we post a new video.